Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Living with XXY podcast series. I'm your host, Ryan Briganti. So today we have a mother and son. We have Connor and his mom, Kelly. How's it going?
It's going good.
Going good.
So Connor is actually here in San Diego, and we're doing this podcast via Google Meet. And for all of you, Connor is 17. He's a senior in high school, and he's going to share a little bit about his story. And Kelly, his mom, is going to kind of fill us in on what's going on and how they got the diagnosis. So Connor, what do you, 17 in high school, what do you like to do for fun?
I mainly like to play games, and I like to play with my stepbrother Billy on the games. So like we play like Brawl Stars, and then I play some Roblox, and it's just a good time.
So is Brawl Stars a like phone game?
Yeah, it's on the phone.
I think I've played that before.
Yeah.
Is that the one? Is that the one where you kind of run around eliminating people? And it gets like smaller and smaller. Like the people get smaller and smaller.
I think you're thinking of like Agario.
Oh, okay. I think I've played Brawl Stars, but okay. So you play that with your brother, and then you play Roblox.
Yeah.
What do you like about Roblox?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of negative conceptions, but like, there's many games on it. It's a platform that hosts games.
Okay.
And as of a new feature, there's like games you have to verify your ID. You have to be like 17 plus. So you get to talk to people that are like actually your age, which are nice. So
it's kind of building community while playing some. Is it kind of like Minecraft?
I mean, there's games like that. I mean, and you can make anything in it. I mean, people have made stuff that looks like Call of Duty on there. So
it's a creative platform where you can build and like kind of create your own.
Yeah.
Kind of take your own creativity and build something, and then other people can play it.
Yep.
Right on. That's awesome. And then what about when you're in school? What topics or what are your favorite classes?
Right now, I love my government class because my teacher is just super funny. He just jokes around like the whole time. He's just really funny. And then I like my health class because we go out and we got the chance to go intern at different places. And I chose to intern at Kaiser. It's a volunteermanship. And so instead of having class every day, we get out early, and then on Fridays for me, I go to Kaiser from 1 to 5, and I just volunteer, help out, and talk to patients and stuff. And
are you in any specific like, are you in a specific doctor's like room, or are you with a pediatrician? Are you with an endocrinologist? Like, are you in any specific like practice? If that
No, some people were. I was just kind of thrown out there. Everyone kind of was that went to Kaiser. We just kind of thrown out there, just like figure it out, you know. But basically, I just do rounds through like the medical, just like medical offices. Just do rounds and ask patients if they want like a washcloth. And I had somebody last Friday who I brought a washcloth because he asked for it, and he said he had been there for over 30 days, and that was the first time that somebody had asked him if he wanted a washcloth to clean his face. And so that felt really good.
That's awesome. So you're helping people is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And are you learning a little bit about the medical community or medical field? And
yeah, I just like seeing the smiles on their faces and how happy they are.
That's awesome. And I'm assuming you have your driver's license then, if you're leaving class on a Friday and you have to be there around 1, so you're driving yourself?
Yeah.
When did you get your driver's license or your permit?
I don't know about the permit because I mean, like, I procrastinated, I think, for like a whole year, or because I got in trouble a bunch, but let's talk about that one. But I got on January 6th of last year, so I'm almost to a year of driving alone.
So you got rid of you had your like 6 Mom, how does that work? You permit at a certain age?
Yeah, so he started practicing driving. So at 15 and a half, he had to take that test. And you know, it's funny because like if there's something Connor does not want to do, he's like, doesn't try that hard. But when there is something he wants to do, it's this hyper focus. And so he really wanted to drive, and he studied for that test and like took every practice test that there was online, found them all, took them like 8 times, did great.
Fell asleep at 4 p.m. because I was so tired from studying.
Yeah. And we did he practiced for a while, made one of, a handful of awesome decisions that stopped him from driving for a little bit longer. And then, so he turned 16 in June, and he didn't get his license and like take the test until January. We as parents just wanted to make sure he was responsible enough to be out, driving. It's a very serious thing to be driving. So, and I can say that like he's done a great job. I did have to give up the learning, like the teaching of the driving. His dad did that. That was too scary for me.
So the permit process of you driving with like, if you have your permit and there needs to be like an adult over the age of 25 or 28 that needs to be in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it with my dad. I did it one time with her. She just kind of screams the whole time. So
no, it was bad. I don't think I should.
Stop, Ray. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. So basically any teenager's experience with getting their permit and driving with their parents, you had that.
There's got to be one parent. It turns out that's not me. That's not my superpower.
No, I've seen there's a lot of other people that's like, I won't practice driving. My mom is too crazy.
Yeah. It was just, he has a super mild dyspraxia. So for me, like, I just feel like I'm not sure if I don't know. It was always just nerve-wracking for me, but he has been a great driver this whole time. And I'm actually super proud of him. He's done a great job.
How long did it take you to get did you get the test? Did you take the test once and pass the first time?
Yeah, I think we were allowed to miss, it was up to 10 points. I only missed 2. And it was because I was too afraid to look to my right mirror because the person was there and I didn't want them to think I was looking at them. So I just didn't look at my right mirror much.
So you passed the driving test and you only missed 2 points. And then you got your learner's permit when you went in to take the actual like physical written test. Did you pass that in the first try?
Yeah, I only got 1 wrong, I think.
So you were dedicated to learning, like you put your hyper focus on into like learning as much as you could to go in there with like all the knowledge possible.
Yeah.
Because he wanted it. Like he really wanted it. He is a night and day type person when he wants something. It's cool.
That's awesome. So with with school, do you play any sports? Have you gotten involved in anything with school?
No, I'm not. I don't really like sports. They've never been interesting to play or watch. I don't know. I don't see the love in like exerting myself. Fun.
Why sweat when you don't have to?
Well, yeah, I guess so you can say that.
Have you gotten involved in any like individual sports like snowboarding, skiing, like skateboarding, surfing, things outside of like that team environment, or that's exertion as well?
I mean, it's still exertion. I mean, I did play racquetball at a gym I don't even know when it was, but I did do that, and that was fun. I played it by myself and with my dad. It was just fun because it was just laughter, and we made our own rules, and it was just fun.
He also, I took him skiing. Not this snow season, but the one before that, he actually got to the point where he was just slightly chaotically just going down the mountain. And one time he ate it and like just rolled, and his ski pole goes up. He goes, "I'm okay." This giant snowball in front of me.
He crashed through a tree.
But one of the things with Connor is that he, when we got his ankles looked at, he has a flat foot and he can't, like, because of the muscle hypotonia, not really muscles like not growing as fast as he was. He can't flex his foot like a typical person would be able to. We're working on that with physical therapy. And I think the ski boots, they always hurt him, but I think they hurt him in a way that I wouldn't have understood at the time because I didn't understand I didn't know what he had. And the other thing is just fatigue, like a lack of stamina for stuff that at the time was a big issue. And now it's just totally changed now that he's on testosterone.
So I'm curious, this is perfect to lead into this. How old was Connor when you found out that he had Klinefelter syndrome, and what were you like? How much work were you doing to try to find that? Because I know you have like a lot of information on that aspect.
So I am not a doctor by any means, but my degree's in anatomy physiology, and I love that stuff. I teach a high school level medical science class, and when Connor just, like, for him, his whole childhood, if you were to find a symptom of his condition, it would have just been behavioral and attention, right? He has pretty bad ADHD, even medicated. He's got ADHD, some anxiety. but just choices, like just not being able to pause for a second and make the right choice. So he was having behavioral stuff that I thought he'd grow out of, and he didn't. And so at the end of 10th grade, we were like, what is going on with this kid? He's not much, like the maturity wasn't coming. So we did, like a neurobehavioral analysis, and that doctor came back and said, yep, told us what we knew. He has ADHD and he has anxiety and a little bit of dyspraxia, which is left-right coordination, both fine and gross, which is, affects his handwriting. And then that doctor said, have you ever gotten his, like an endocrine workup, his hormones? And I said, no. So I went to his pediatrician and I asked for that. And we looked at all of his hormones, and testosterone was normal. I believe luteinizing hormone was normal, but follicle stimulating hormone was off the charts. And I know enough about those two hormones to know that they usually travel together, right? They're either both high or they're both low. So that was a huge red flag for me. And I called our doctor and they're like, we've never seen that before. We don't know. So they went and called Rady's, who said, like, do the test again. So in that time where we were waiting for the results of the second test, I did a ton of research on what would cause one to be high and the other one to be normal. And there's like this moment for Klinefelter men during puberty where the FSH spikes, but the LH doesn't. And when I read that, and then I started reading some of the possible traits of someone with Klinefelters, I was like, gosh, some of those fit my son. So I requested a karyotype from his pediatrician, and she asked why I wanted it. And I go, I just feel like it's something I always want to know. And it came back positive. Last year, August 5th of last year.
You didn't even tell me until like
I did not tell my son right away. No, I told you late August. It just took me a few weeks. I had to process, think about it, learn about it. So that was the summer before his junior year. I then lost my mind and did a gazillion years of research. And I told him he had like a genetic condition. I think that's what I said.
Yeah, I remember my therapist, he said, like, he told me what it was, and then I forgot because I guess it's just super complicated, but you didn't want me to know. And he said, like, something about, like, I couldn't know yet.
Yeah, I just had to kind of get my head around it. It just took me a little bit of time to get my head around it. What does it mean for my son?
Because you didn't want me looking up things and seeing all the negative things first. That's, I think, what it was.
So when you requested the karyotype, did the doctor like ask you constant questions? I think about why do you want that done, or were they pretty open to it, but they didn't fight you on it?
No, she did not fight me on it. She's amazing. She's helped both of my children their whole lives. I think it's just not very common for them to see it, even though I think they're seeing it, and they might not know they're seeing patients with it, obviously. So no, she's just said, sure, like, why do you want that? But she's been very helpful. She helps me. Anything I ask, she'll put through.
So that's really awesome that right off the bat you have someone in your corner that's like, you have questions, you want to do tests, like she'll figure out a way to get insurance to cover it, or to let you know that insurance isn't going to cover it, and things like that. That's awesome that you have someone in your corner. So when you found the diagnosis, why did you wait the 2 weeks or the 3 weeks before you told Connor that the like specific details of XXY?
It's just a tricky thing. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of aspects to it. Connor's old enough to know a lot. And so I needed to think about how I want to tell him. How do I make sure he sees this positively? I myself had to process. I had some grieving to do. It's as a mom, you don't want anything bad to happen to your kids ever, and or anything at all to be like a challenge. And like, I just kept coming back to Connor, like, he's the most wonderful human being. And the way that he is exactly who he should have been this whole time. And it has been just the most wonderful thing being his mom. It just has been fun. Yes, he's had some behavioral stuff. Yes, we've had to do a lot of math together. But I mean, he just he's just wonderful kid. And how do you tell somebody something? It just took me a bit to get my head around it. I needed to talk to his dad. We then had to come up as a team. Like, what do we want to say? What do we want him to see? So, and even the fertility part was a little, that even came later, because not much later, but it was just this, it was a little choppy, I think. Like we finally got down to what it was. And then we talked about fertility, and then we did not start testosterone right away. Even I think his puberty was a little delayed and he needed it. And then, so we found out August 5th. By September 26th, we did a microtesty surgery. So I went pretty quick. I saw an endocrinologist, a spine person to check his spine and his bone density and his bone age. And then he did the sperm sample. That was a little stressful, of course. Came back negative. We did the microtesty surgery, and that came back negative. And that was probably the hardest thing to tell him, is that was a negative.
I remember you sat me down. Yeah. And then you told me about it. I don't know.
The first thing he said was, well, Mom, maybe there's some kid out there who needs to be adopted and he needs a good dad. Which, of course, then I have to leave the room and go cry. You know, like, it just, what a sweet thing to say. That was the first thing you said.
Yeah. Well, you know, you got, because like I said, I like to look at the positive side of like everything, because looking at the negative side does nothing for you. So, you know, you can help somebody else out that, you know, maybe I can just skip past all the like hardships of a baby, and then I can, because like there's a lot of like teenagers that won't be adopted because people want them younger so they can get the full experience. But maybe I can take in a teenager that has been in the system for a long time and then make their life better.
Wow. I mean, that's you're gonna make me cry too.
The other thing he said, I was talking to him when I first told him, I'm like, okay, so, you know, like, you have 1 to 23, the story of how to be you, right? Of chromosomes from your mom. Mm-hmm. And another 1 to 23, the story of how to be you from your dad. So you basically have 2 of you, right? Like mom's story and dad's story, 2 number 1s, 2 number 2s, 2 number 3s, and so on. And I told him Down syndrome, you have 3 21s, and you survive it, right? You can have a life, and you're lucky at that point. If those extra chromosomes happen, but the baby doesn't develop. If there's 3 number 1s, baby doesn't develop. 3 number 2s, baby doesn't develop. And I said, you've got 3 number 23s, which weirdly your body is super tolerant of. And so you like barely have any symptoms at all. And you've got an extra chromosome in every single cell. And he goes, so wait a second, Mom. I'm super lucky.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was waiting to see if you were going to say that, or if I was going to say
it. You did it. You said, I'm so lucky. I had it on the right pair. I'm like, you are lucky.
Okay, so say I had to have an extra chromosome, just whatever, right? It was going to be this way. Not only did it happen to be on the correct one for me to survive, out of the 2 options, I happened to get this instead of Down. So those are huge positives. It had to be, it was like 1 in like 47 or something for this to happen.
Can you repeat what you just said? Because it went kind of like the internet went like, as soon as you said what, like the 23 or whatever, it slowed down.
Oh, okay. So, where was I? Basically, so if I had to have this an extra chromosome, like if it was destined or whatever, then I'm lucky to have it on the one I have, because if it were to be on any of the other ones, I obviously wouldn't have developed correctly. I probably wouldn't have been born. So I got lucky enough to get it on, it was the 23rd pair. And then out of that, I happened to get the one with XXY instead of Down syndrome. So I got like really lucky. Like, I don't know. I think of it as a good thing.
I mean, you have a great, for at 16 to have that like mindset, and obviously have great parents. And then you also have just a great way that you hold yourself. And like, that's the perspective switch that I've been trying to share and show with this community, is like, this diagnosis should be celebrated, should be like, hey, look, you're the 1 in 500. So like, for me, the way, no offense to anyone that sits in a cubicle, but like there's 499 people in a cubicle inside of an office building, and I'm the dude on the outside, like looking in and being like, I want to be in there, but then when I get into that environment, I'm like, oh my God, you put me back on the outside. Like it's a blessing once you are able to find out like what this life gives you and the positives, and you know, not just focus, like you said, not focus on the things that you like, you don't have like the negative, like not focusing on that. And so to have that perspective of, and having this diagnosis at 16, you're not only helping yourself, but like just by sharing your story today and not afraid to put yourself on YouTube and a podcast, they're gonna have so many other kids and older guys that like look up to you and be like, if he can accept it, like why can't I? And that's really powerful to have that. And you know, so going kind of back to mom, like you dive because of your career and because of like your teachings and your understanding of science, you just dove into all the research you could possibly find, and then you educated yourself on it. No, did you have anyone, like, did you guys meet with genetic counselor? Did you have any other doctors that you met with that knew more than you did, or were you the expert in the room?
Unfortunately, we did not meet with a geneticist until January because it was just a wait list. Like there was a waiting for that. For me, it felt like I was asking for testing and being asked, why are you asking for that? And I'm like, well, that needs to get looked at. I read one of the articles I really liked had an overview, and it went through every system and some of the things that you might want to look for. And I went to every single specialist and I looked for all those things and checked everything that I knew of. And I still am finding certain things I think I would like to go just make sure we're on the right page and that I'm not missing anything. Everybody needs an advocate. He's a kid. I have the ability to read the medical articles, pick them apart, and understand a lot of the terminology, which I appreciate that I have some of that background so that they're not super hard to read. But so far, it's been scary because I feel like I'm the center of a wheel and each specialist is one of the spokes, but none of them seem to really have the full picture. And they say, oh, they know of it, but they don't know it. So I feel like if there's something that needs to get tested, I better know what it is. Because I don't know, I haven't had somebody suggest something I didn't already, like, I'm the one doing the asking of, I want this test, I'd like this, I want this checked, I want this checked again, to see if there's any change, that kind of thing. I don't know. It's that part's a little bit scary. We are going to head out to Colorado at some point. We've seen a lot of specialists, urology, and we did the microtesty surgery, endocrinology. I switched endocrinologists to adult endocrinologist. I'm still working on it though. I'm still looking for somebody who truly knows this condition, and it's a syndrome, right? So it affects every system. You have to have someone who really is paying attention to all the different aspects of it.
Is it frustrating for you to like be the expert in the room?
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary because I'm not a doctor, and I want someone to be there that says, oh, you got to get this tested, don't forget this. And oh, that test result actually means this. But I go look at all that. I don't know. I've spent hours and hours and hours. Why not? This is my kid, right? Like putting my heart into it. And I did just find some research that they're doing on stem cells, spermatogonia stem cells, that even when you have a negative microtesty, which what Connor had and most Klinefelter men have, they're finding that there are spermatogonia stem cells in the testes that are still capable of making correct sperm. And the guy that is doing that research, which I'm happy to share at any time, I'm going to go find that guy and we're going to meet with him just to see if we should do some tissue banking. Like, should we be preserving tissue for future research? Yeah.
So what did you guys tell Connor? Like when you found out the diagnosis and what led up to like the diagnosis itself? Was he having delays in certain areas? Like what why were you guys getting tested?
Well, I was a little concerned when he was 15 at his annual like pediatrician checkup, and she's like, it's all right. Like some kids start late. I was kind of a late bloomer. His dad was a late bloomer, so there wasn't any like major red flags. He kind of started puberty, but we're like, at 16, it was that behavioral report, and he said, you know, do you want to look at the endocrine, do an endocrine workup? And when we went at 16 to his annual pediatrician, I asked for the endocrine workup. And, you know, it's all in hindsight that I realized he was having like really delayed puberty, but this is my first child, and it just was hard for me to see, oh, wow, this is like actually pretty late.
Every second is a first.
And then when I found out, I think I just had to figure out what I wanted to tell him. And it just takes a bit to get your head around what it is. And then how do you tell him, and what are the pros and cons of what I tell him. I've been stunned. I mean, he's had a couple like moments where you're like, you know, it's hard information to take in, but he's been.
Do you remember what your parents told you?
I don't know. It was long ago. I don't know. I just remember they sat me down and then just told me I had this thing, but I think you guys started off saying all the positives, and it doesn't mean all these things online that it has.
I started out by just saying you have a genetic condition, and so we got to get a couple things checked.
Yeah.
So we were just getting those things checked, and then he wanted to know the name of it, and then I did not tell him right away, which I was getting there. This was very quick for me. It was like all within like 2 weeks, and I talked to his dad, and we were like, okay, Kelly, like me, I've got to just talk to him. And so I did. I mean, at some point, just, this is the name of it. This is what it means. I think you went and did your own research at that point, right?
I don't know, maybe a little bit. I actually haven't done much research until I was trying to write a personal statement for college, and then I started doing more research.
So when you found out about it, like, were you asking questions to your mom? Like, why am I having to go get all this blood work? Why am I constantly having to go to doctors? Did you have questions?
I'm not sure. I can't remember much actually at all.
That's okay.
And like the last thing I remember is just starting testosterone, and then it feels like that seems to happen to everybody around me too. They forget their childhood. So
you kind of started, you like were going and getting blood work done, and then your mom told you about the diagnosis, and then how much after was it that you had the micro-testy surgery?
It wasn't in October. Yeah. Well, no, it had to have been, because we did the micro-testing thing before the testosterone, because we were told that we can't start the testosterone because it would make the decay fast. It would decay faster.
Not quite. So okay. On August 5th, we found out. September 26th, we did the micro-testy surgery, and we managed to push that procedure closer because it would have been further out. And I don't know. I just kept calling to see if I could get an earlier surgery. What happens is if you start taking testosterone, from what I understand, it'll inhibit your body from making its own testosterone, and then it inhibits sperm production. So he needed the testosterone, he needed the brain development, but we were like, why don't we just wait 1 more month and go get this surgery done first and just give it a shot?
And I said yes.
We did. You said yes. We did the surgery. I did ask him about that.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Some anesthesia.
I'm curious at 16. Can you talk about the surgery?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just weird. I was not worried about what happened when I was under. I was more worried about the gown I was wearing. I just remember that. I just was like, dude, I don't like it. Shows my entire back and everything. Like, that's what I was worried about.
Like your whole butt, you have like a little tie in the neck.
Yeah, I was like, dude, I can't do that. That's what I was worried about, not anything else.
So when you woke up,
I was in a lot of pain. I remember they gave me like fentanyl or something.
He goes, one of their pain medications, which is where you would find a drug like that, is in a hospital, and he goes, Mom, I told you I'd never do drugs, but I did it today. And he's all out of it. He's making a joke.
Remember I called Dad? Do you remember we called Dad and I told him, Dad, I just did fentanyl, and he was like, what?
No, it was not a funny joke, but he was
out of his mind.
No, I swear, it was still so painful.
That was a little bit of a rough recovery.
I just remember sitting in the game room and
yeah,
everything. I couldn't walk.
Yeah, it took a little while to get over that one.
Okay, so you had to be wheelchaired out.
Yeah.
And then what was your recovery like? What
like 2 weeks?
And can you explain, like, was it super painful? Like, what was going on as far as that details?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it was just really sore and like tender, I guess you could say. So it's like certain movements had to be like careful. I had to be careful. I remember once I jumped and it was a big mistake because that hurt really bad. But I know that there was a lot of bleeding afterwards. And I thought it was abnormal, but we contacted them and they said it was like normal and everything. So I actually wore feminine pads
for like 2 months.
It's not 2 months. It lasted 2 months.
No, it didn't.
I don't remember.
Yeah, he just was bleeding. I mean, it just like oozing. It was a lot of little biopsies.
It looked bad.
It was bad.
It was purple. It was bad.
So from when you got the surgery to when you went back to school, how much time elapsed?
Well, I went to school while it was still bleeding. Like I wore pads in the school. Like I mean, I just took the elevator everywhere. What?
I'm trying to think. I think he was home for a full week because we had the surgery on a Monday. And then I think he went back to school and had an elevator pass so that he could so the movement was a little bit less.
That's rad. Your school has an elevator? That's awesome.
It's got like 3 floors to it. So it's a tall.
There's one part that's 4 floors.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just the science room.
And that took a while. And then another thing that he had was just his teeth hadn't really descended. So it's just like an immaturity. And so they had to do another surgery to get brackets on his teeth to pull them down, which they're down now. So,
but I would recommend the surgery if people aren't sure if they have sperm. I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys, there isn't. I've talked to a couple doctors, and there honestly, it doesn't seem like people know really what the right and wrong is with the microcystic surgery and what the percentages are. We've heard anywhere from like 4 to 7% to 25 to 50. And then we've had doctors say you need to go off testosterone, and then others say, oh no, you don't need to go off of it. You can just go off of it for a period of time and get on like Clomid and HCG to like boost the production to see if it's there. Like, I'm not a doctor when it comes to this. I just listen to a lot of the experiences of people in our community. So it still does. And then because it's most likely cash out of pocket for most people because male infertility is not covered. And then also being young. So that's like a, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 out of pocket costs for a lot of people that some people might not be able to afford it. And my recommendation for them is and I don't give recommendations often because I know that you can get into a lot of legal crap when it comes, especially here in California. But it's like if your son needs tutors or help with school or the mental health aspect, that money for development in that area would be a much more like better use of than this one-stop shop of if someone's got to have to refinance their house to pull out a loan to get this surgery done, like sometimes it's and like you can't. The hard part about it is like you don't know until you do it. You just don't know because there's been people in our community that have had success, and then there have been other people that haven't. And like I know a ton of guys that have done it when they got diagnosed, and a lot of them came up negative. And then I know like 1 or 2 guys that have biological kids from it. And so it's definitely, and then with young kids like you guys, like I know doctors can pull heartstrings with parents of like, well, don't you want your son to have a chance to have biological kids? And like the parents are in this vulnerable state of like, they just found out this diagnosis. They found out their son's infertile. Like there's a lot of emotional heartstrings that can be pulled there and like the wrong reasons. So there's a lot of there's just so much information on that, but it's awesome that you're here today to talk about your story and that this is your guys' story. And you did this surgery at 16 that like when my parents offered it to me, it was really new. And I was like, what is it? Like, what is it? What does it do? And I think they mentioned it around high school. And my dad was like, oh, they cut your testicles open. And then I was like, nope, absolutely not.
I watched the video on how it was done. And I was just in pain trying to watch that thing, dude.
Before the surgery, he did. I was like, why did you do that? I don't know.
No, it was after.
Okay.
On YouTube?
Oh God. The needle was like that long.
Don't say that.
Okay. Was it on YouTube?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I think I've watched it similar.
Maybe you shouldn't put this in the podcast.
No, it's everything.
Okay,
No. That's the beauty of just having a generic, like not generic. That's the beauty of having an organic conversation. Is I don't like to plan things when things come up. They just come up, and I misspeak all the time, but that's part of life.
Yeah.
So kind of moving on. So it took you like a while to recover. You were wearing pads at school, which is like, to admit that. I mean, that's so rad of you to say that, because maybe there's other guys that have had to do the exact same thing, because you're not going to bleed through your clothes at school. Like that makes total sense.
Yeah.
From a surgery, how long until you were back? I know you don't like physical exertion, but how long were you like till you were like back to your 100%?
I don't even know.
We started testosterone October 11th. I don't know why I remember all these dates. So the surgery September 26th, October 11th, we started testosterone weekly. And then that recovery, I think that went on like kind of through December, because then we had this tooth surgery and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's finally done. And we're just going to mess with him again. But he was back to himself from both of those surgeries in January, I'd say. And oh my gosh, I mean, the testosterone, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, he was all over the place. I had to help him all the time with math because he couldn't pay attention in class, really be on him about things. And it's like he picked his own life up and took control of it. And he's been doing he cares, like doing his own school, getting himself ready, wakes himself up now in the morning, gets himself his own stuff, got a job. Nobody asked him to get a job. He wanted it. He went out and got it. I did not help him do that. Finished the school year without really much help from me. By the time we finished the school year,
ChatGPT came out and it could explain everything really easily.
ChatGPT actually helped him quite a bit. I have to say, not like in cheating, but like in a way to like, okay, I don't know what
like
this
how
is.
To do the functions and whatever. All that stuff was really complicated.
So were you asking ChatGPT questions like, how do you do this?
Yeah.
And then it would break down like instructions for you, and then you were reading the instructions to understand how to do it.
Yeah.
He needs it like that. When I would teach him math, it's okay. It's like a recipe. We've got 4 steps. This is this. Then you do this. And I would do it in colors for him. I would help him with his notes, because that worked better for him. When he wrote his own stuff, it was just messy. So having it be really sequential and clear, I think, is what helped. And
I have
then
a picture of my final
the note card.
Yeah.
So he does have a 504, and I had them write on there. Because of his dyspraxia, I made him do his like finals note card. He wrote it on like 3 sheets of paper, and I took it and I shrunk it for him and I wrote it, because he can't do the tiny writing, and all he could use was a 3x5 card, which is like an accommodation for somebody. It's exactly what something like that is for. Is somebody should be able to help him get something on a small card, because it's not fair. I can easily do that and he can't.
They have print. I just saw like an ad on Instagram for printers that do that.
Mm-hmm.
They're like specifically designed to print like on for a note card for college exams and stuff like that. Someone was genius enough to like invent a micro printer for that exact purpose.
Micro printer. So he just has really grown up. He's talking about we're applying to college. He wants to do nursing. He's talking about moving out now and wanting to like try to be on his own. None of that. I mean, he is night and day. He like went from being a child a year later to
that's what I'm saying. I felt like it was so
adult.
abrupt. Like I didn't get a smooth transition. It was just like, boom, I know I'm an adult.
It was great. It's been great.
So when mom said she specifically said weekly. So for you to know that like weekly is the most ideal situation, especially with injections, like you clearly have gone down like the research like hole of like the rabbit hole of what research there is out there, which there isn't very much. And then you've learned about testosterone and all that. So why weekly? Like, did you have to advocate for it? Did the doctor suggest it? Like, how did that work out with your endocrinology?
So that's actually where it differed. The endocrinologist said once every month. And then I had listened to your podcast, and the men were talking about that. Every 3 weeks doesn't work. And when we went and saw the urologist that did his microtesty surgery, I actually did research to find that guy because he had done so many, and he had done infertility research with, I think, Klinefelter men and the microtesty. So he's the one who ordered the testosterone for him. He's an adult urology men's fertility doctor.
What's his name?
Shay, but it starts with an H, Dr. Hsieh. And he's in San Diego. He's at UCSD. He's amazing. But he knew, he's like, testosterone, you burn through it by day 9. So we do every 7 days to keep the level where it should be. And we get him his blood looked at, gosh, I think it's every 6 months now for him. And it was a little too high at first, and then we came down, and we take 80 milligrams every week. He does his injections himself.
Are you doing sub-Q?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did someone teach you how to do it, or like what like at 17 or 16 when you started, like what gave you the accountability to be like, I want to do this myself?
Well, eventually I was just, I just wanted to do it myself, prove to myself that I could do it. And I also just didn't want to have to like go into my mom's bathroom and wait for her to like get it ready and whatever. So
I like prepared it every week in the beginning. And then the very first injection where we weren't, the doctor's assistant showed us how to do it in the office. And then so that next week we had to do it, which we're all, sweaty and freaking out.
Have you guys do it one time, or did I just say, let me do it?
No, you did it the first time.
I did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah, I never did it. We also used Nucleus Medical Media. They are an amazing company that does animations, medical animations.
Oh, man. You know what? We're actually working with them.
I told them about you guys.
Yeah,
I told them about you.
Jen, one of the moms who had, she's the one that helped us change the image on that was on like the Mayo Clinic. It probably wasn't around when you guys found the diagnosis, but there used to be an image that would pop up when you Googled it of a man with his hands on his hips, gynecomastia, square face, like glasses. It was a very like misrepresentation of our community. One of the moms reached out to them about all the drawings that are online. And by the time this podcast comes out, I'm not sure if it'll be out, but they're redrawing like 40 images of men and babies and adults with Klinefelter syndrome to make them look real. And it's Nucleus. That's the exact same medical company. So that's amazing. Their president responded to an email, to Jen's email within like 48 hours or something.
They have an insulin shot video of how to do it, which is basically the same way to do it. So we had that up on the iPad and we watched it. And I purchased their whole animation library as a teacher because I use it teaching medical science.
Okay.
That's an amazing company. Their stuff's on YouTube. It's great. And I think that's how we kind of watched it and did it. And he did it by himself the first time, which thank goodness, I was really nervous. It's hard to I can't inject my kid with this. He did, and he's done it ever since. And he's got, just like you talked about, days where it stings and
then the next stabbing you something.
And the next day it doesn't hurt at all. He's like, I didn't even feel that one. So I think he's just hitting like a sensory nerve sometimes, or hitting a blood vessel or something.
So what are you're doing 80 milligrams or 80 is it 80 ml? No, not 80 point. I'm lost when it comes to milligrams and ml. Like I know milligrams is like the strength and ml is like the amount.
So we have a 200 milliliter container, and then we only take 0.4. So we always have a whole dose left in the container.
Okay.
And the 0.4 is 80, so it's 200 milli. I don't remember either.
Yeah, it's so
cool. We just go by a CC thing because it was 0.8 CC. I'm pretty sure.
All I know is I stuck it into 0.4, and it's 80 on it's 80 on his. 80 milligrams on his own.
There you go. That's the part. That's the kind of stuff where I'm like, it would be great to have some education from the medical community for us to teach us about this. Like, what's the difference? Because all I know is where on the 3 ml syringe that I put the line.
Suck it up to. Oh my gosh. Well, the problem is that every single measurement has different units. If you look at there's the units switch all the time. Even testosterone, I get these lab reports from different companies and the units are not the same. I'm like, well, I have to go do. So I did this crazy conversion once of units. I'm like, this is insane. So then, I mean, there's people who know I don't have to do that. I never did figure all that out. I'm just like, whatever. I'm just gonna let the doctor say, do this.
So when you went to the doctors for the first time, the nurse did the nurse show you, or did the nurse do it for you?
They showed us and they did it. The first one, he did it. The nurse did it to him in the office.
And
they
then
showed us to draw it and
so
everything.
you watched the insulin video and then did your injection yourself. Do you know what syringe what syringe you're using, what type of needle? Do you know like what all that is?
Mm-hmm.
Does he know? Does he know?
I don't know.
I don't know. I just, there's one thing that's coming up. Our pharmacy messes up the needles every single time.
Yeah, that's that's frustrating. It's very typical though.
I have to check it before I leave.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the names of your needles?
Nope. I just know that one of them you don't use at all. You just throw it on.
Okay.
So you're using like lure lock? Is it BD lure lock? The twist. So you use it, twists on, and it locks like when you take the cap off.
Yeah.
And then, or what size needle are you drawing with, and what size needle are you injecting with?
18 gauge draw.
Okay.
And I think it's 1.5 inches. And then the injection needle is a 25 gauge. Is that right? Am I flip-flopping them?
No,
25 gauge is a tiny one.
Is it 5/8 or 1/2 inch?
5/8.
So you're doing exactly what I use.
Yeah.
And I've
If
learned
it's a tiny little baby needle, it's doable.
Yeah, you can use a 27, but what I've learned is so you're right around like the area that I'm at. And what I've learned with the 27 is I actually did like a YouTube video with a 27 gauge, and it took me like 2 or 3 minutes of like firmly pressing the needle where my hand was kind of shaking to push all the testosterone in. Granted, I didn't feel the needle at all. Like I didn't feel any type of like prick or anything that sometimes I do with the 25, but the 25, I can press it firmly and I don't get any resistance to where I'm like, okay, it's going in slow enough. It's not like a 21 gauge where it's going in really fast, but I can get like enough, but I can press it. I don't get resistance and my hand doesn't shake when I do it. And I just go 45-degree angle, like 1 inch to 2 inches away from the belly button.
That's perfect.
And I switch sides.
Sometimes,
or do you go straight in?
well, I think
they told
I
us to
don't know.
go straight in, and I wonder if we
well,
should
no,
ask.
I think I do it my angle. I don't think I go straight in ever. Am I supposed to?
Well, if you go straight in, that's like a 90-degree angle. So he's saying he goes in at a 45.
I just kind of go like this.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know the diff. Like, I mean, I'm only like, I'm more paranoid about like puncturing my abdomen with it, but I'm like, it's only a 5/8 inch. Like,
I always say I'm gonna hit something.
Yes,
exactly. Hit muscle. There's a whole chunk of muscle there.
No, I don't know. It's just weird. Sometimes I don't feel it, and then sometimes it like hurts, like where it burns really bad afterwards, and I just curl up in a ball and just keep rolling all over the place that hurts.
I mean, maybe not that dramatic because it's not that bad.
It is not that bad. It stings, and he's like, "Okay, it's gone, mom." But
whatever.
So
yeah.
So it's pretty amazing that you're at 16, 17, you're doing your injection yourself. You've learned about it. How are you with blood work when it comes time to getting blood done?
Well, it's good in the fact that it just takes so long for some reason.
To get in.
Like, to get in. Yeah.
I think he's just talking about the wait to get into a lab.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's easy.
The draw itself. So everybody's different, and he doesn't have medical like debilitating anxiety. Like I've seen it, you know, there's other people in our family who are really afraid of those things, and he never has been. Like with the flu shot with his younger sister, he'd be like, I'll get it first so you can see that it doesn't hurt.
It's because I was trying to be big for her. I was scared.
He's scared, but he does okay.
Now I do it all the time. So
blood draw, he does fine. He walks in.
I
and
like
just
looking
does
at the needle, like the flu. I got a Kaiser. I got a flu shot, and the needle was so long, and I just watched them as they put it. It was like that long or something like that.
1.5 inches, probably.
Yeah, probably like that. Yeah, it was really long.
Like 4 inches.
But I didn't feel it
through your whole arm.
But
so what benefits of testosterone have you noticed since you started?
Well, I mean the deeper voice, I love that. And I think I have higher energy, so like I can do more things. I can focus better. And then I think like just like overall my mindset of things, like I'm not fighting battles over like right and wrong kind of choices. It's just like, okay, it's like one way.
So is it easier? Is it maybe helping you with making a decision? And then like the decision you make, like standing by it, whether that decision is right or wrong, you're like learning that, okay, I made this decision. This is the outcome of that decision.
Yep.
How are you with Mom? What about impulsivity? Like being impulsive, has testosterone helped with that, or
tremendously?
Okay.
Tremendously. I feel like we went from a kid who, again, that little moment where you decide not to do something happened after he did it for him. You do like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, which is typical for someone with ADHD, impulsivity. And now, you know, it's been great. I mean, he just is making the right decisions. Every once in a while, he'll do something and be like, ugh, which is fine. I mean, every day you get to do that day for the first time. And if you make a mistake, you're like, all right, I'm gonna learn from it. And you keep going forward. And for me as a parent, it's profound. For a kid who I saw struggle, he's turned into like a kind of gung-ho adult who doesn't do stupid stuff anymore. Like he just, or if he does, it's not nearly as often. And I'm sure I don't know about all of it, but
yeah, don't throw yourself under the bus right now.
Yeah, don't tell me now.
You can tell your mom when you're my age or like a little like I told my parents when I was going to community college, I was going snowboarding every weekend, and so those are the little things where I was like, you know, I needed to let it out, but I was in my 30s when I let it out, not you know, like a week after whatever I did.
He does tend to tell me like things right away. I'm like, you don't tell me that. Don't tell me that, Connor. Can you just not tell me that one?
Well, he's honest. I'm not, you know, that's great. Honest. It's great they're honest, and you can't like white lie, or you can't, you know, if you did something you have to say about it. That's, you know, that means you raise your kid well to be honest about, you know, his.
And he'll just eat him alive until he finally tells somebody. So I always want him to be able to.
I mean, I used to come home like and just tell her every single thing I did that was bad that day. Like
that was actually part of the problem, is he would just have to get all of it off his chest immediately, and that's all he would tell me every day. So he'd just come home, even though he had a million good things that he did, he'd be like,
those aren't on
Mom, I was in the bathroom and then I said the A word, and then this is when he was like 7. I'm like, okay, but did anybody hear you? All right, you don't have to tell me that one.
Just like pointless things to myself.
It's good. Yeah, it's been a pleasure being his mom the whole time.
How has school been for you, like with social and girls or dating, things like that in school, since you've been on testosterone versus before?
It's a lot better. Like a lot of people that used to find me extremely annoying now will actually talk to me. And I'm just more funny in general and don't say random stupid things.
Were you really sensitive and emotional? Or you think you still are in some ways?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I've never really been extremely sensitive. I don't think. Maybe like
to what other
middle
people
school
say,
and like but then high school people weren't so mean. So
did you get bullied a lot in your grade school or middle school?
Every day.
Me too. We have a lot in common. It's hard to go back. I think when I started this organization, it brought back a lot of my past that I had swept under the rug, that I either never got therapy for, never got help for, or things that I just never talked to people about. And it's still to this day, like this community has been asking about like, well, what about bullying and things like that? And I want to talk about it. And I have to also, you know, like, I have to also like go back to those memories because I'm very visual and everything is very, very like, it's like a movie, you know, a movie scene like Black Hawk Down or something where it's like it's very personal. But it's also when I share, like I don't want sympathy. And at your age, it's different when you get older and you talk about it. Like I don't want sympathy from people like, oh, I'm sorry you had to go through that. Like I'm sharing it because I want others to know that they're not alone. Like you're the same way, you know. I got bullied from probably kindergarten through 8th grade, like every day, and it greatly affected my life. But I've learned to like it made me who I am today, and I would not go back and change that.
No, I wouldn't, because I mean, I think of like every event that happened, like led up to this discovery of my condition, and so in all, that's all good. Because like, I guess if something else changed, we wouldn't have known. I guess so. I think it's all a good thing.
Do you feel like high school's been way better?
Oh yeah, a lot better. Yeah.
Okay.
But even then, she taught me like not to have like hate towards my bullies. Like it's just like, I mean, they're going, like she always said, there's something else going on in their life.
Yep.
And I mean, I figured out that was true. But anyway, I got my justice because they got expelled. But
So what are you having? Like, what are you having a hard? Like, mom said, math. You have a really hard time with. Have you had a hard time with like reading, writing, reading out loud, spelling?
I can't read out loud, dude. There's no. I just stumble over every word, and I can't know what I'm reading. So
he actually gets math quite quickly, but he has to have it done and taught in a very linear way, and then he has to be forced to pay attention. Which, if he's sitting right next to me, he can't not pay attention. You know, like we'll do it and then he'll show me the steps and reteach it back to me. So I actually think he has a math brain, but the attention gets in the way. And then as far as reading, it's fascinating. And I've heard other moms talk about this on your podcast. He can read, but he can't also understand what he's reading at the same time. Because when you're reading, he's doing the reading. Like he's staying on the line and decoding the word and reading, which is an active thing for, I think, a lot of men with Klinefelters. So comprehension, he has to listen to the book, which I think that's really helped.
I mean, we haven't really, I haven't done much listening into books since like a long time. But I mean, if I'm interested in something, I can read it. Like I just found out I'm reading a book that my therapist made, and I'm really into it. I can actually read it and understand what I'm reading. I don't remember it later, but then I go back and I'll remember it again.
Yeah, it's really, it's really common. I know that I'm not too sure that there's actually been research on a lot of this stuff because the medical kind of stays with the medical. But I feel like it's very common for a lot of us. Like what I learned is when I was in, and I just did a YouTube video about this, is in 9th grade, they did popcorn reading and Bible, like, cause I went to Catholic school. And they did popcorn reading, and it was like verses out of the Bible, like paragraphs out of the Bible. And all the kids you would typically only get picked on once, but since the kids found out I couldn't read out loud, I got picked on like 3 and 5 and 7 times, where the teacher wasn't paying attention enough to where like she noticed that like everyone wasn't reading once, like I was reading the majority. And so I learned to read ahead and almost because we're very visual, I learned to read ahead. And so I would, instead of paying attention to what other one kid is reading, I was always reading one paragraph ahead with like this major anxiety of like, okay, who's going to pick on me next? Because I knew that if I could read it and then visually memorize it, that I could read it out loud, no problem. Once I knew like what the text was. And so, and then like going back to and then that's basically kids stopped bullying me because they're like, oh, you can read out loud now. And my dad used to make me read out loud the Hardy Boys when I was like 10, 11, 12. And for 30 minutes right before bed every night. And I hated it and I dreaded it. And I like felt like, even though my dad wasn't judging me, like I just felt judgment. I felt like all these uncomfortable feelings, like just didn't want to do it. And he pushed me regardless. If I wanted to do it or not, I had to do it. I look back on those moments and I'm like, man, I wish I just pushed through it and didn't like spend the hours of like, I don't want to do it. Like just that whole, like, I did a lot of stuff with my mom, right? Like all my English papers, my mom worked with me to like type because I had my IEP. I could type them out instead because my handwriting was so bad. So I did a lot. Like when I talked to your mom the first time, I was like blown away by the things she was telling me because I thought she was talking like that was like exactly what you've experienced. Like I was talking with your mom about, and I'm like, that's me. That was me. Like there's so many things in common. Even though I'm 37 now, like there's so many things that I've experienced that you're experiencing or that you have experienced. And I think so much of that is directly related to XXY, though no one's studied it. And I can't, I don't want to say that everything's related to XXY because like I didn't grow up with what I'm doing now. Like I didn't Google it till I was 35 or 30, 33, 32. So like I never was like, oh, that's because I have Klinefelter syndrome. I just put my head down and I worked and I did the things I had to do.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating because your podcast and the people that come on and speak, I have learned a lot from the boys who've been willing to speak, the dad, the men, the moms, everyone. One of your people on the podcast said something about not being able to go up on a ladder. And this is in the beginning. And I'm like, wait, what? That's a Klinefelters too? This child cannot go up 2 steps. He cannot stand in a table. And at the beach, he could not go up that lifeguard tower. And I couldn't ever figure out why. And then, older, he would tell me going downstairs, he can't do that and talk to somebody. because then it almost feels like the ground is moving. And of course, I'm sounding crazy. I looked up all the research articles on this, and Stanford is doing one. There's a very specific part of the brain and a nerve, your vestibular nerve, that does spatial cognition. And you have all these androgen receptors there. Like that development in your brain it was different than everybody else with Klinefelters. It's like a thing for people with Klinefelters, is that part of their brain isn't quite, it's fine. It's just not quite what everyone else's is. So his experience going downstairs or standing on a table is different than mine. And it looks different to him and it feels different to him. It's perceived differently. So it's scarier for him.
So that was in it. That was done by Stanford in like in a research. Is that part of the BGAP study? Like the brain's genes and that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you read it, they talk about 4 specific areas of the brain, which none of them are in like any language you can understand. So I went and looked up what all of those areas do. And I wrote it down and I'm like, oh my God, this is my child. Like talking.
And then you told me and I'm just like, wait, that's not normal.
Even like holding your posture is a thing. Empathy, which I feel like he has a profound amount of, but there are all these little things I can show you whenever. I just took notes. I'm just fascinated by this stuff. It helps me understand.
You sound like a nerd.
I do. I'm totally nerding out. Helps me understand him. I feel like a little bit that this condition is a tiny bit invisible. So
I mean, it is. You're hiding in plain sight, right? If me and Connor were to be walking around outside, like at the beach, nobody would know. You know, nobody would unless you have the core physical traits of, you know, really narrow shoulders, gynecomastia, all the weight around your stomach. Like there's a physical difference there, but not everyone has that exact physical. And I think that's what's hard is this one study that they've done at BGAP that's maybe like 15 or 20, 30 kids. Like it's hard to pinpoint and be like, okay, well, if that's the case, then that's everyone with Klinefelter. And that's what's so hard about this, is that it's such a spectrum.
It is. Someone on your podcast described it as a punch card, and there's like 40 things and you click a couple of them and that's what you have. Those, you don't have all of them. I mean,
that's a good analogy.
Yeah. So you just get a couple things, and who knows which ones those are going to be, which makes it very hard to catch this. I mean, I think as a doctor would, a lot of kids have ADHD. A lot of kids are impulsive. A lot of kids are this and that, or tall. I mean, like you can't. Yeah. Now people are doing genetic testing earlier, but gosh, I don't like what you've said online.
I think, Connor, that like me and you are going to eventually have to do a podcast with just me and you. And then I'm going to have to do one with just Mom, because there's so many things that I want to ask you, but then I also want to ask Mom, because Mom has gone down like the research, exactly the thing that I did early on, but now you're like so up to date where I haven't gone back and read that. Because I kind of want to go back to the reading for just one aspect. Is you talk about like reading these research articles, you don't know what half of those words mean, so then you have to look them up to understand them. That's very much like reading with a lot of us XXY guys. Is like when we read the words to just read them out loud, but then there's so many words within that paragraph that we don't know what they mean. So then we have to do the extra work by researching them and learning what they mean, and then going back to it and understanding the context of like what the context of that word means.
Sound accurate?
Well, yeah, I did this today actually when I was doing my book, and then going off of the reading thing on Sunday when I was doing college with my dad, he's like, okay, so read this out loud. So I'm like, okay, let me read it in my head first, and then after I read it all, I'll skim it over again and then read it out loud to you, because then I'll know what I'm already about to read.
It's exactly what you just said.
Which is exactly what you said. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. And so like, but then when you read the word, like when you understand what the words mean, then you have to learn the context, and then you have to reread it to like understand what the paragraph even is about, whether it's about like World War II battleships or aircrafts. Like there's so much. And then once you do that, then you like can read that one paragraph. Well, if you have to read
forever.
Yes. And if you have to read a book when school goes, oh, you have this like 150-page book that you have to read in 2 weeks and give us a breakdown and all of that stuff. My parents were like, once they figured out that, they were like Cliff Notes, like, because we didn't have audiobooks. So they were like, boom, Cliff Notes. And then they got that approved, and every book was, and in a way I felt cheated, in somewhat type of way because I wanted to read it. Like I wanted to be able to do it because when kids ask, some kids knew that like I couldn't read out loud. So then they're like, well, how the hell did you read that book in that amount of time? You know, and you want to fit in with your peers about knowing like where you kind of feel not cheated, but you kind of feel like you, and I didn't feel like I cheated because or being cheated and cheating, like I didn't feel either of those really, but I just wanted to fit in with my peers, and knowing that you have to like constantly find these workarounds sometimes can be really challenging, especially when you're in high school and just in your younger years of your life.
I'm a huge advocate of like, how in the world is he getting through English right now, right? And I asked him the other day, and he's telling me all these strategies he uses, and it isn't cheating. It's
resourcefulness.
It's resourcefulness. You're getting around your disability, right? And figuring out a way to get that same information in a different way. It's incredibly resourceful. I mean, this kid, like, he's got a whole text to read, and has to answer questions. He's Control F. Apparently, nobody in his class knows what Control F does.
What Control F do?
You find
so you can type in a word and it will find it in the entire document.
Oh, okay. Like I do that with spreadsheet because I don't know how to use spreadsheet, so I use it to search names.
He does that in English. Like if he has to answer and there's a quote, he'll put the quote in.
Yeah, I'll just put the part of the question in, and then I'll just get my answer. I won't have to read through like half of the book for no reason, or the text.
So
I don't know. I'm impressed.
So the text is in digital form, and then you're doing Control Find to find like where the quote is or where the answer is to the question you're asking.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably not going to be like a literary specialist for his career, so I'm okay with this.
That's totally okay.
Yeah, it's going to be okay.
It makes life more fun, just trying to find ways to like get around things faster than everybody else.
So what else are you doing? Like what other things are helping you or that you've learned?
Well, I mentioned the ChatGPT thing, so it just knows everything, so you just explain everything.
Also quick, right? Like for someone with an attention thing, it's just he showed it to me and I'm now using it. It really is quicker. It just tells me.
Oh, like, I thought you said quick, like something that was named quick, but you're talking about how ChatGPT is quick.
It gives you straight to the answer, and it's almost always
sometimes
accurate.
I mean, everything you say, even if it's super simple, it gives you like a 5-paragraph response for some reason, but you can just ask it to shorten it, and it'll do that.
It also does right now. I think it's still relatively new, so it doesn't have empathy. It doesn't have like a lot of that stuff, and so you're able to kind of read. Like when I've used it for a couple of things. I actually recently asked it to write a bio about me, and it did that, but there was a lot of factual things that were wrong in there. But because I need to write a bio about myself, and writing about myself and the accomplishments that I've done with living with XXY is like super difficult. Like I don't handle compliments very well. I've always, because I've stood out for all of the like being pulled out of class for like a extra time on a test, or like I've kind of been pulled out or pulled away from life in general for the things that I'm not good at. So when people give you a compliment, it feels like, oh geez, I don't want that. So writing, I used it recently as like, hey, can you write a bio about me and living with XXY? And then I pulled pieces from it. One of my workarounds is on Mac. I found that I could bind keys like with Control F. So I did Command S, and when I highlight the text and I do Command S, it reads it back to me. So when I'm writing, I can listen to what I've written, like paragraph by paragraph, and then I can be like, okay, I need a comma there. I need to change that word, or that sentence doesn't make sense. And it takes, like, just like with the reading thing, it takes me 3 times or 4 times longer to write a paragraph than it does most people, or to read a paragraph.
Yeah. I tend to I don't know. I can't even focus on reading a book. Like I just see a giant block of text, and I know there's like 150 pages of that same block of text. My mind just skips through it, and then I just like get sick, and I just can't do it.
So you don't do Cliff Notes anymore. What do you do?
Well, right now we're not even reading any book. We're reading our own book.
Which is so fascinating. He can read this other book that it's on.
But it's about like I can implement things from it in real life.
Yeah, it's like he sees somebody that is amazing in San Diego and he does hypnotherapy. He was a pediatric pulmonary doctor.
Yeah.
And he found that with certain visualizations, he could get his patients to go through a treatment without pain. And so he started kind of researching what would happen with that. And he now runs a huge hypnotherapy where you kind of just drop into that subconscious, which seems to like know everything if you just would listen to it. And it's been really helpful for him. That started before we found out he had Klinefelter. And it was really for me like okay, regular talk therapy is not helping. He's still making these poor decisions. He's still good, like every once in a while, just like, what are you doing?
I'm really glad that like the decision that I made to make me go to him, I'm still really happy it happened, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have been talking to him. I would have accomplished many other things. Yeah,
this guy's amazing. His name is Dr. Ambar.
No, you can't just give out people's names.
No, I can't, because this is to help other people.
Oh, okay.
He's amazing.
Okay. Yeah. I'm avoiding saying the name because I didn't ask him for permission to use his name.
Yeah, he's it's okay. He's written books.
He'll if he doesn't want to get more busy, then he will deny patients, or he'll deny people that he doesn't want to get busy. But some people, like that, everyone wants their name out there to a certain extent, because then
the book out there. He wants me to promote his book. He's like, make sure to show it to everyone while you're reading it.
What is it called? Just hypnotherapy?
Hypnosis in Children, I think.
Hypnosis in Children. It's fascinating, and he's a brilliant
doctor. I won it in a giveaway. I got a free book.
Nice. Or maybe he was using that as a way to promote it. He was like, I can give this kid a free book, and then he'll read it and promote it for me.
It's a good book, though. I actually like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the thing with I think that's the thing with most people, though. I would say without XXY is like, if you're not interested in something, you're not going to put effort towards it. And then if you're really interested, like for me, World War II, I'll read any book about World War II because I'm going to know that I'm going to learn details that I'm not going to learn from photos or watching video. And so there's a lot of books that I've read, or a lot of like the Afghanistan, Iraq wars and things like that. I've always been fascinated with just our military and things like that. Growing up in San Diego, especially in like the area that I grew up, there's a lot of like submarines and ships and things like that you see on a regular basis. So, just to be fascinated with that. And so I can read anything when it comes to that. But do I have a really hard time? Absolutely. And so recently I've, learned about Audible, and I switched to like Audible, using books on tape, and I can be flying and listen to like 6 hours of a book. I don't get bored in that aspect. Or when I go for a walk on the beach, I'll listen to, right now I'm listening to Think Like a Monk, and it's actually a really good book.
You were doing stuff with monks, dude.
I have that book on my Audible.
Yeah.
I know exactly what I was reading.
Dude, she was trying to she's talking to me about all this this religious monk stuff and how you can do all this. I remember you're trying to I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of relatable. So just like you said, how you like things that are relatable to your own life. There's a lot of things that what he says that are very relatable to a lot of people's lives. And for me, a lot of it sticks, and I actually have to take notes, and then I have to mark it and go back and listen to it multiple times for it to actually stick with me, of being oh yeah, think about it this way, this perspective. But so I'm just curious, we're coming up on a little over an hour, and I'm curious on why you wanted to share your story today, why you decided to be on this at 17.
Well, because, I want to be a part of it, to know that maybe I helped at least one person, because obviously all the other stories have helped us with it. So, I mean, by adding, especially what you said about how there's not really any high schoolers that would want to do it, because I guess people just don't want to be open or something. Then at least I can help somebody else out. And then it will also, it's setting an area for other people my age to actually want to come out, because no one wants to be first. So it will probably open the possibility for other people to want to come talk as well.
I feel like this condition is so misunderstood. Just the XXY piece, just all by itself. The default for everyone is female. XX, you're a female. If you just have an X, you're a female. Everyone starts as a female. The only way you turn into a male is if you get a Y, because there's a gene, SRY gene, that turns on and turns you into a male. If you don't get the Y, you don't turn into a male.
Everyone's gonna leave the podcast.
No, this is good stuff. So if you have a Y, you are a male, period. It's not I feel like that's the biggest problem, is that piece right there is not understood. That's it. I'll stop.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's the thing that, I think that's the only way how misinformation changes. That's the only way how doctors and researchers and people become interested in this, is that if people with XXY or their families with young kids with this open up and talk about it publicly and tell their family, tell their friends, and let people know like what their son is and what their son isn't. And, you know, I think it's really good for guys, especially, to learn about it. I would say that even now, even after starting this organization, I was like I would say like 95% of our community knows nothing about their diagnosis other than I need to go to the endocrinologist twice a year. I need to do blood work twice a year. And then I need to do, if you're on testosterone or you take medication, like you need to do that. Other than that, like there's so much information that's not like older men, teenagers, like they don't want to know about it. They're like, and I think it's the whole feeling of like, they don't want to be told they're different. Like they just want to fit in with society. They want to be like, they want to have some aspect of community with wherever they are. And because this diagnosis is hiding in plain sight, people can hide in the shadows from it. And so I think it's just the only way that things change is if people open up and talk about it, just like you're doing today, and encouraging others in the community to also share their story. It's how we all learn from each other and how we like see the similarities pop up, because you talk about that brain thing of like where you're like standing on a platform or like anywhere where I'm relatively caught like off the ground. I feel like my knees and my legs are going to give out. I get really dizzy and really like in a weird state. Even sometimes I'm standing right now doing this podcast, and sometimes when I'm standing here, I feel like I'm way off balance. And when you told me that, I was like, no, like, okay. And I actually, when you gave me the name of it, I actually didn't go and research it. But now that you've like said, like BJAP is doing a study on it and that they've found this, like, well, if they found it in 15 or 20 individuals, then how many individuals in our community actually experience that, but don't even know about it?
It's crazy, the stuff that has come back to KS. He got he was in criminology, or what's it called? Criminal justice class? No, it was forensics. Okay. And they were doing a fingerprint lab. And he got marked off because his fingerprints were terrible, and he couldn't get the mark right. The ridges on your fingers for KS person are not nearly as pronounced as a regular person, so you can't get that clear of a fingerprint from what I read. I'm like, that is crazy, and he lost all these points on it. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. You could get away with a crime. Don't do that.
No, there's actually an actual condition where people are born without
fingerprints. Yeah. Anyway, I am going to help out and try to put out I am not a doctor, but just kind of the things I've done.
Yeah, you've done.
Mom, it's a lot to take in, and like, what do you do? Who do you see? Why do you see that person? What are you looking for? And I'll just write it down, outline it or something if it's helpful.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be, especially all the research and everything that you've done. It's like there's a roadmap there. That's the thing. There is no book like Klinefelter for Dummies, like that Dummies book series. Like there's no book series. There's no like, how do we, I think that's the hard part, is like research that's only been really researched is like the medical. None of this, like none of the traits where I've met 700 men and boys with this condition where I've noticed like we're observers, we're hands-on, we're visual, we're like very kinetic, and like these things haven't been researched. And so it's like, I want to put together some aspect of that. So guys like you know that like I might be better at this career going through high school and then like applying for college or going to trade school. Like it's going to better their overall life and what the career path they go down versus like, you know, struggling to fit into the areas that they don't do well in. There's so much possibility with that, but it's been amazing having you guys on and just having you share your story and talk. And I know, Mom, you've got so much more stuff to talk about. So we will do a podcast when I get back from New York and Boston that's specifically just about diving into all the research and everything that you've done.
Give me some heads up so I can organize it.
Yeah, we definitely will.
Process.
I just want to know. I just want like your brain for like a minute. I just want to see it. I just want to know all the things that you like have like
that he's learned.
Yeah, that you've learned. Like
yeah, we can totally, and that'd be another great way to do one of these is to do a YouTube video or in a podcast together where me and you can just have conversations. Like, I would say, why don't you write down a bunch of questions that you have over the next, because I get back from New York on the 20th, or Boston on the 26th of October. So I'd say, like, let's schedule something for maybe November, and you just write down all the questions you have, and you can interview me and you can ask me questions, and that would be really fun.
I do want to say thank you, Ryan, you've just done so much work and made this for our family. You were the first thing that popped up. We're like, oh, you need to watch this podcast. Like right when we found out.
Listen to him in the car, like before I got my license. That's all I hear in the car.
The people who have it and have experienced it have all the knowledge in the world. And I really want him, when he's ready, like really be a part of the community, so you guys, everyone can just feel like that there's a team here all working toward the same goal. So I appreciate all your work. You're amazing.
Of course.
You do good things.
Thank you guys so much.
I don't like compliments, Mom.
There's no complimenting.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it now because I know that, like, what I've started, I know that families, more than 300 families have reached out and said, my child wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you and the community that you've created. And that's what I try to tell everyone else, is that your story will save a life. Like, and very few people in this world have the opportunity to, like, physically impact somebody else's life. Like what you were talking about when you found the negative microtease, you're like, well, I can always adopt and change someone else's life. Like, that thought process is exactly how I think about this. And like every person's story, even though a lot of them might be similar, or people don't think that their story is going to make a difference, like it's going to make a difference, because there's always going to be kids born with this, and more people are being diagnosed with it.
And you don't know, like, we'll tell this and some mom out there will hear something and go look something up for her kid. And it's that little thing that I'll never know about. It's already happened to me from your podcast with other parents. I'm reading a book I heard about. I learned about this. I learned about that and looked it up. So it's very helpful, and I'm proud of you.
And I have been very open, like telling people what I have, like, because obviously I want to spread it too. I want people to be informed and educated on it. So like, I mean, like teachers ask, like, what's things about you, I'll just put that in there, or I'll have it I had it in my personal statement, because I'm just trying to, like, so I just want to click for somebody, and then they just start a whole other thing.
So you're kind of using it as a conversation starter in a way, like putting it out there.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's so amazing. Well, thank you guys so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
Wow, dude, you are, let me just stop this real quick. I always forget to tell people.